Hey guys, Jeremy James here. Wanted to make the quick video describing the steps for setting up your own personal bulk email system, basically using a system called MailWiz. So one of the reasons you may want to use this, I don't know if you've ever tried to load your leads into mail systems like Aweber, MailChimp, Kartra, etc., and been denied loading them in bulk. Or worse yet, had your account canceled. Maybe they said you violated a terms of conditions. This might be for you. You'll still want to be very careful not to send spammy emails, and you will want to load cleaned leads in order to prevent your server from being blacklisted. But you are in control of the leads that are loaded in this system. Maybe you know the source of the leads and you have cleaned them, etc., but you didn't get the traffic from a lead capture page that you control. For example, with My Lead Gen Secret. The next thing is, if you don't have dual opt-in proof, that's one of the things that the bulk mailers would like you to have, or you have too many leads, so it's no longer cost effective. And I'll get into that a little bit later, but it can cost quite a bit as you add more and more leads into any one of the canned systems. And then the next potential problem is that you can't send certain emails. There are certain terms that violate a mailer's terms of service. If you've ever tried to send an email broadcast and been flagged as sending content that isn't allowed, that's exactly what happened to me in MailChimp, and I've heard it happening to other people in other systems. Whether you mention network marketing, a business term that they don't like, or how to make money online, or a product that they don't want you to associate with, like CBD, for example, they can just outright disable your account and you're done sending. So again, you're going to want to send any emails that you send through this new system through some sort of a spam checker before broadcasting them. Otherwise, your personal server can also, be blacklisted. But there's a lot more flexibility in your own mailer than there is with the arbitrary terms companies use to try to keep their send rates up. So now, unreliable click counter information. I will say that, if you're using a lead purchasing system, you may want to consider this. It allows you to load leads from any source and either combine them into one list or keep multiple lists, which is pretty cool. You can purchase leads and load them into but you can't load them into a mailer. That can be very frustrating. So, one of the services we use has a built-in mailer, which is awesome, but there are still some issues with it. So the click counter in My Lead Gen Secret is not always accurate. They do something called cloaking. They will cloak your links in order to track how many clicks there are. But the number of clicks that they report to you will not always match the page counter that you see on your landing page or within the MDC system, for example. And anytime I've talked to customer service about this, they say there's no problem, but then all of a sudden I start getting a few more hits to my page. So there's something going on, and it's not a big enough deal that you have to worry about it. It's still definitely a very good lead source and very inexpensive, so don't think I'm trying to say not to use it. What I'm trying to say is that I'm not so sure that their counter is accurate. And I did actually test this and theoretically proved that it's an issue. I simply created a new page in Kartra. It started with one page view hit when I tested it. I created an email to broadcast out on MLGS with only this one link in it, no other links. I sent it to over 7,000 leads, offering free information for completing a survey, basically. So they did check that the click counter in MLGS reported 381 clicks. However, when I went to the Kartra page, there were only 6 page hits total. So with only that one link in the email to this one particular page, that's all the hits that were made. And you can see here, it shows 7 Um, and in this case, 7 people who hit the site, one of which was me when I was testing it, they go from the one page up to this thank you page, and all 7 went to that thank you page. All 7 actually completed the survey. 100% of the people that, you know, hit it, the 6 who did actually hit the page, did complete the survey, which is impressive all in its own right. But you can definitely see there's a discrepancy. There were only 7 that made it when, you know, I was told that there was 300 and some clicks. So anyway, I'm not trying to slam the system, like I said, but the one advantage you do get in having your own server is that you'll get reliable open and click rates. You'll see exactly which links were clicked. It'll show you broken down by the specific link. So if you have one link that goes to a certain lead capture page in MDC, for example, and you have another link that you wanted to go directly to, say, your step 2, you know, video in the PS system, then you would actually see which one of those links were clicked on, and it'll even show you, you know, a link such as your unsubscribe link, whether that was clicked on. It allows you to load the leads from any lead source. I mentioned clean them first. I give some resources later that explains how to do that. But you can, with the maximum setup, which I'll explain a little bit later, send up to 50 million emails a day, which is probably way more than any of us actually need. And you can send what you want to send without fear of account closure. But again, you want to be careful. Don't get blacklisted. There are ways that you can, you know, check whether your server is blacklisted. You can see, and I'll give the links to that as well. And you can get a different IP address for the server if that's what happens. But there are systems that you can use to clean your leads and make sure you're not sending it to leads that are bait leads, the ones that they're checking to see if you are a spammer. There are just fake email addresses people enter into systems, and the more of those you send to, the worse off you are. You know, and this is part of what these systems like Kartra and Aweber and everything else are preventing by not even letting you bring the leads in the first place, and by not letting you say certain words in your content. So you can get around some of those hard set limitations in these other systems, but you still want to be careful. So real quick, to set it up, there's basically 6 steps. So first of all, you're getting a domain name, which if you don't already have one that you want to use for this, it's in the system that I use, it's $15.19 total for the year. You can use GoDaddy, you can use whatever system that you want to get a domain name. I would recommend using a separate domain name. So in my case, I had 2 words put together.com. For this mail server, I used first word - second word.com, just so it was unique with its own email addresses, which you can set up within the server once you have it. You don't need to host email anywhere else. Your server that you set up will actually host your email and send your email. So all in, the domain cost is whatever it costs you to get the URL, and you have to make sure that you can get to the DNS. So I'll talk about that in a minute. The next step is actually getting a VPS up in the cloud. It's for $40 for a year. $3.35, I think, per month. You can do it monthly. It's the same cost per year as it is per month, which I'll show. The extra $48 per year that I mentioned here is if you do get extra IPs. Now, I happen to buy 16 extra IPs, and the total cost was $48 for the entire year. You don't have to have that, but you do need them if you want to get to the point of sending the 50 million that I discussed in the first place. But you can send close to that without actually spending the money to get those extra IP addresses. Just without buying any extra IP addresses, you're going to have one IP, and that'll allow you to send roughly 50,000 emails per day, which is still pretty good. The third step would be hiring a Fiverr to complete all the setup. Unless you want to go through all of the learning that it would take to set up one of these servers on a Linux box, and there's a lot to it. And for $37 all in, it's a lot easier to have somebody that knows what they're doing, does this all the time, just complete it for you. And then it ends with some cleanup and adding your emails, adding your customer account to bring in your lists and to send your campaigns out, and you start warming up your server. So we'll go through these steps in a little bit more detail so you know exactly what to do. But I found that the total cost for me for all options for an entire year was $140.39. So not bad. And just to give you a comparison, AWeber's prices at the time that I looked for up to 25,000 subscribers is $149 per month. So for less than you would pay for AWeber for 1 month, you can get this server and do everything for an entire year. So pretty cost effective. I happen to use Visiting Host to get my domain name, so I just show that here. And the reason why I wanted to show this is in order to do the DNS management, which is a needed piece, there was an extra $1 charge that I had to pay to Visiting Host to give access to that after I bought the domain name on that site. There's probably servers that you can get your own domain name for less than this. I don't know. This just happens to be the one that I'm using. So again, for me, it was a total of, 15 bucks to get the domain name plus the DNS edit capability. So you're going to want to look into that at whichever domain you use. And then the next piece is, in this particular case, I was able to add a sub account. This is an optional step. You don't have to do this. I created a sub account just so I wouldn't have to give access to all of my domains, all of my URLs, the entire system. So I just gave access to managing the domain settings, viewing the domains, opening tickets if they wanted to open the ticket. And this is the account that I give to my assistant on Fiverr. So it's an optional step. But in my opinion, it was worth it because it was a lot easier to give them access to this account and not have to change my own password and give them access to my full account. So something to think about. So step 2 is actually getting the VPS. Now, I happen to choose ovh.com. It's hosted in Canada and happens to be very inexpensive to get an entire server. The option that you would choose is called a VPS SSD, and it's $335 per month. So when you click on that, it takes you to the optional page, so you can have certain sized servers. The first one, SSD 1, was plenty. It's you're probably not going to need more than that, but you can always upgrade if you need to. But $335 a month is enough to send out 50 million emails, so it's pretty good. So some of the options that you'll pick, I show here, is just VPS SSD as the range selection, and as the solution selection, I'm picking the SSD 1, which I think was the defaults on this page. On the next page you get to, or maybe scrolling down, you want to pick Linux distribution only, not with any applications. And the operating system that the Fiverr would like you to have installed is CentOS 7. I happen to install 8 thinking, oh, that's better, but the software that you use requires CentOS 7, so make sure that's the one that you pick so you don't lose a day like I did having to get it reconfigured. This was the defaults. You don't need anything extra. You could add some extra disk space here if you wanted to. And again, here's where it shows that it's $335 per month, no matter how long of a frequency you use. So you can pick just the 1 month and only pay $335 now, or you can go to the 40/20 option, pay for the entire year. It's totally up to you. There's no discount for doing it for the year. So that's it. You complete your order. You set up your payment, you create your account, confirm it, submit it, and you'll end up waiting a day. You'll get an email back that says that your server is done and configured, and they will give you a root user, and they will give you the password to get into that. And those will be needed by your Fiverr helper. Now, if you do decide to add the multiple IPs, you have to wait until that is done. The VPS option you can see up above in the menu, but you'll go down to this IP area, and there'll be a spot off to the right-hand side that allows you to order additional IPs. Again, if you do that, it's currently charging $3 per year per IP. So I spent the extra $48. Not so sure that you need to, but I figured I would do it now. And the reason I did it now was because when the Fiverr sets it all up, they can load balance between all the IPs. So if you add the IPs later, it's not really going to do you much good. You kind of have to make that decision now, or pay the Fiverr more money later to have it configured so it'll utilize all of those IP addresses. So again, you complete your order. It takes another potentially a day to have those IPs installed. And if you don't provide access directly to your domain, which I didn't in my case, the access that I gave him in the sub account didn't allow him to edit the reverse DNS entries. But it gives you a document, or they give you a document that explains how to do that. It was super simple, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. That's a step that comes later. So next, step 3 is, it is technically optional, but again, I would not want to do all of this myself. The assistant can set up everything for you. It's all put into place. And I'll show you the option that I show you here. The option that I used, the Fiverr that I used, was $35 for the premium, which installs everything. Plus they give you the warm-up guide, schedule, all kinds of information. So it's worth it, especially if you're doing IP rotation, which is included in this one, where he sets up all of, or they set up all of the IP addresses to share the workload. So here on Fiverr is the one that I use. I'll include a link below the video so that you can get directly to this person. And you'll see this is part of the information that they provide, what they do. You can take a screenshot or just stop it here if you want to read it. I'm not going to go through all of this, but like they said, they have over 15 years of experience, and they do set you up an email marketing machine that gets a great score on mailtester.com. So you start off good, then you can only mess it up yourself if you don't follow the directions that they give you. So on the Fiverr site, when you complete your order, as you put the order in, it asks you for the details, the login details. So the root user, the password that you're provided. You have to give them the information for your domain, any IPs that you purchased, etc. And then they take about 2 days to get it all set up for you. And in the end, they give you a text file with all of the passwords, URLs, emails that are set up automatically. Everything that you need is there. They give you the pointers for what warming up a server means, how you do it. And then you get a bunch of links to some videos that explain the MailWiz system, which I'm not going to get into on this video because I'm trying to keep it short to just kind of give the details, and I'll put, again, the links below for most of this stuff. But it's a fairly simple system to use. It's very similar to Aweber or MailChimp or some of the other systems that you've used. Now, step 4, I put this in here because I think it's important for you to know. You'll probably want to change all of the passwords that you provided to your helper. Any accounts, in my case, I could remove the extra account on virtual host because I'd set that up, and then I didn't have to change my own password. If they don't have the ability to do the reverse DNS entries for you, then they'll let you know that. And then it was a really fast process. You hit one edit button, paste in the code that they give you, go to the next IP, hit the edit button, paste in the code they give you. It's that simple. It's a copy and paste operation. And I highly recommend that you watch the training videos that they reference and read the documentation that they give you. There's a ton of really useful information in the videos, especially, which are done by the MailWiz company itself. So then step 5 is to actually add in your own emails. So you have a hosted email at your new domain. They give you quite a few logins in the and you have to figure out, what is the front end, what is the back end. So in the document that they give you, it'll list all of these different URLs. And what I would recommend is the same thing I did. Just go and paste each of those URLs into a browser, see what it leads you to, look at the options along the side, and it's pretty intuitive. But you're going to want to decide on what emails you want to have personally, and probably not just use the ones that they set up automatically. So your name at your URL, for example, or if you want to have a customer service at your URL, or support at your URL, then you can set those up. And I'll show you that on the next page. But I would not delete any of the ones that they provide. You can change the passwords to it if you're worried about your fiber, getting back in and having access to your system. You can easily just change the passwords on all the accounts that are set up. So here's an example view. So in my case, I set up my name at the company at URL, and I made a support at that URL as well. And you just go to edit users on the left-hand side of the virtual min address that they give you. So you'll log into virtual min and go to edit users, and you add your 2 email addresses or however many emails you want to create at your URL, and you're good to go. The next step is going into one of the other URLs they give you, which is the backend for MailWiz itself, and you go to the customers area, and you'll set up a unique customer. So I put my name in using my email address. The contact at my URL is the one that they set up by default. So I left that there, just changed the password again. But now you have to have a unique customer account, and you can create more than one if you want to keep your lists separate for different campaigns you're doing or different companies that you are supporting or whatever the case may be. And then the last step is to actually go in and start warming up the server. So once you figure out which URL that they gave you is your front end, you'll log in as the customer that you created. So in my case, it was my name at my URL. I logged in as that customer, and then I created a list. I imported 50 of my leads from the MLGS system. I created a campaign to broadcast a test to the group of 50. And then every day you can ramp up. So the next day you load in another 50 and send to all 100, or you could just load in another 100 and just send to the new list or new portion of the list that you add in. And then the next day you'll send 500, the next day 1,000, the next day 5,000, and that's the warm up. That's how you ramp it up, is slowly sending a number of different emails per day. And that way you're not immediately marked as a spammer because you just start sending 40,000 emails all in one day. So now some recommended steps, and this is really important, and we talked about it back in the beginning of the video, but it's always important to clean your list. So a couple of examples of how you can do that. There's a place called Email List Verify, and in this case you can scrub a file. You'll upload a CSV basically, and it'll go through and it'll tell you whether any of those emails are bad. It'll verify and give you a list back of which of those emails were good. So in this case, $49 to scrub 25,000 emails, not too bad. Another site out there is called bouncelist.io. They're $99 for the same, 25,000. So, but it's another option. You may already have used these for other purposes. But whether you use one of these two or any other service, the best thing you can do is make sure that you're not loading bad leads into your system. Somebody used a fake email address when they signed up for something, and that's now being propagated. You want to filter that out. If somebody uses what they call a honeypot, or there's a lot of different words for it, they create these email addresses that are put onto various sites just to see if the leads get passed around, just to see if you're considered a spammer if you send to those particular email addresses. And all of these email cleansing systems check for things like that. The next thing to consider is sending your actual email, the content, the wording that you're going to use in your email, to a spam tester service. So an example of that is called mail-tester.com. You can go out there and get signed up for it and get a one or more email addresses at mail-tester.com to send your emails to. The best thing to do is to set up a small list of, say, 5 of these. Send your email campaign to that list first. It will automatically go through and simulate clicks to all of those links and do everything that it needs to do to check out whether the copy, the actual text in your email, is considered good or not. And it will come back with a result, and it'll tell you what you can do differently, how well your formatting is, making sure that you personally are not blacklisted, although there's another way to check that I'll show you. Making sure you're authenticated, making sure Spam Assassin doesn't think that the verbiage or the words you use are considered spam. So definitely a good idea to send to something like that in order to make sure that what you're sending out is not going to be flagged. And then the third piece that I mentioned for recommended steps is checking your IP regularly. There's a service out there. It's free to use. You go to mxtoolbox.com, and if you have a URL, then you can put that into the MX lookup area and find out what the IP address is. Or if you have the IP, then you can go right to the blacklists area, put that IP address in, and do a blacklist check, and it comes back and tells you on all of these different servers, 88 known blacklist servers, how many times your server is listed, how many times your IP shows up. And in my case, it shows 0 times with no timeouts. So out of all of the abuse reporting services out there, Barracuda, there's some recognizable names just on this short list here. It's a good idea to check this regularly and see if the emails that you're sending are getting flagged by somebody as spam. So that's it. Hope you liked the video. Hope you click like under the video, subscribe to my channel. More information at my blog site if you're interested. But again, leave some comments below if you have questions, and I'll do my best to answer it. So thanks for watching.